Hello, 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 hello. Good evening. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, depending from where you are connecting from. So I would like to know, can you please hear me? If you can hear me, you can hear the sound of my voice. Kindly drop a chat to confirm that you can hear me. Welcome again to our PMP revision session. We are very glad to have you. If you can hear me, please, can you drop a chat? Hello, Paul. Can you hear me? Do you confirm that you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you for the confirmation. Is there anyone who can hear me from the attendants? We want to confirm that you can hear us. Okay, that's great. That's great. I can see the messages coming. That's awesome. All right, so we'll start in a few. Welcome again to this PMP revision session. Today, we are going to talk about risk management, stakeholder management, and quality excellence. So we have with us today a great instructor. I'll introduce him in a few. But before we start, I would like each and every one, to drop in the comment section where you are connecting from, and also when do you intend to write your exam. So kindly let us know where you are connecting from. We want to greet you, and also let us know when you intend to take your exam. All right, I can see 6 December in some few days. All the best. I know you are going to rock it. Yay, I can see Kadiri from Nigeria saying March. Okay, that's awesome. Let's keep it coming. Let's keep it coming while we are waiting for other participants to join. Please, let's keep it coming. 13 December, yeah, for Arnold. So December is going to be busy. December is going to be busy. So, guys, we hope you are going to invite us to celebrate the combined victory of PMP and also Christmas and end of year. Yeah, I have a young bill from Accra, Ghana, December 2. Okay, I'm sure you've not yet selected your date. I hope you are going to select 26 December on Boxing Day so that you win your boxing match with PMP. Because indeed PMP is one of the greatest opponents. But with an instructor like the one we have today, things will be made easy for us. So let's keep it coming. Let's keep it coming. We are just giving some few minutes to other participants to join. So let's keep it coming while we wait for your other colleagues that are a little bit late, but we'll manage. Let us know where you are connecting from. Let us know where you are connecting from. We want to know, we want to welcome you. We want to know, we want to welcome you. Let us know where you are connecting from. Okay, we've not yet started, but we already have a hand that is raised. Okay, so we are giving again 2 minutes, but before then, we have Susan who wants to say something. So, Susan, you can open your mic.
Okay, good evening, sir.
Good
I wanted to
evening.
start, but it's like it's showing me restricted. So that was why I raised my hand when you were asking for where we're connecting from and when is our exams date. Thank you.
All right, no problem. Okay, sure. So we'll check the settings. You're not supposed to be restricted, but that's fine. Okay, so for those just joining, you want to know where you are connecting from. You have people all over Africa who are connected from Ghana, my people from Ghana, from Nigeria. Let us know where you are connecting from. We just want to welcome you. Okay, we have Richard from New York City. Great, meaning that today we are beyond the borders of Africa. This is going to be awesome. Okay. That's great. Okay. So without wasting much time, we'll just kick off. So once again, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining this session today. So as maybe you are aware or maybe you've seen from the invite, today marks another day for us to move forward towards our preparation and the achievement of the PMP exam. So the topic that we are going to tackle today is mastering project delivery through risks, stakeholders, and quality. So during this interactive session, we'll definitely explore the domain two, where we have to assess and manage project risks, engaging and analyzing stakeholders effectively, planning and managing quality throughout the project. So we have seasoned experts, practitioner, and also great instructor with us today. Uh, he's in strategic finance, he's in PMO and business intelligence. He's a leader. He has over more than 15 years experience, driving financial transformation, system governance, and all that. He is also a PMP instructor, and the name is Mr. Paul Chiprombe. Paul, I hope I did justice to the pronunciation of your name. So Paul is with us this afternoon. He is going to take us through. So my advice is for you to be attentive to all the details and do not hesitate to ask the questions, or if you are not able to type in the Q&A session or in the chats, you can just raise your hand to have the opportunity to ask your question. So Paul, the floor is yours. The attendance is just waiting for you to deliver. Welcome. All right. Okay. Let's try and address that. It seems like Paul mic has been muted. Okay, Paul, you can go on.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mai. I hope I also pronounced it well.
Yeah, I'm actually from Cote d'Ivoire, so you have to pronounce it in French. So it's Mimi.
It's Mimi. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, thank you so much. So as mentioned by Mr. Mimi, my name is Poch Porombe. I do have about 16 years experience in project management from Asia, Africa, and right now I'm currently in Somalia. I'm managing a couple of projects here. Basically, I'm from Zimbabwe, from Harare, and I'm a PMP, and I'm also a project management trainer. So today we're going to be focusing on basically three things. We're going to be looking at stakeholders, we look at risk, and then we finish with quality. So I'm going to share my screen, and if you can see my screen, you can um, you can put a thumbs up once it starts growing. So we're going to start by looking at stakeholders. So basically, what we're going to be looking at is the stakeholder identity. We look at the stakeholder analysis, the register, how to create a stakeholder register, which is very, very important for our projects. Then we're going to finish it with the stakeholder engagement and assessment matrix. So in my first slide here, which is identify stakeholders. So we're going to start here by looking at these example stakeholders. So the stakeholders, they come in different forms. It could be internal stakeholders, it could be external stakeholders as well. So for example, you can see the end users, they are stakeholders, customers, the organization, the government, it's an external stakeholder. So whenever we're doing a stakeholder analysis, we need to be able to know and see whether it's an internal or it's an external stakeholder. Then instead of this exercise, I have to rush a little bit because of time. If you can see my slide, you can put a thumbs up so that I'm sure that we are all on the same page. Mr. Meme, can you see my slide?
Yes, please. I'll confirm that I can see your
Oh,
slides. It's currently
okay.
showing
So
typical project stakeholders.
that's amazing. All right, so let me continue. So as I mentioned earlier that in this, we're going to be looking at stakeholder register, stakeholder engagement plan. We're going to look at communication management plan, and then we're going to finish with stakeholder engagement assessment matrix. So let me move on. Then we start with stakeholder identification. So basically, when we start our projects, we need to be able to understand who our stakeholders are. So our stakeholders can be internal, they can be external of the project. So typically, during a project charter development, um, we identify our stakeholders. So we can use a business case, we can use a business management plan, we can use our issue log, we can use our change log to identify all our stakeholders. So basically, when we identify our stakeholders, we need to understand their interest, we need to understand their involvement with the project, we need to understand their influence on the project. And this is one of the things that we're going to be looking at in this webinar. So now we, after we have understood what a stakeholder is, we also need to assess our stakeholders. So we're going to do data gathering. So data gathering, it's mainly, we need to ask the team if they have been involved, for example, with a stakeholder before. And then we can set up meetings, then we can begin building the relationship and ask lots of questions as we are gathering information about our stakeholders. Then we also need to do data analysis. So data analysis is both quantitative and it's also qualitative. So we need to know what each stakeholder needs and wants from the project and how they perceive the project. We need to understand their interests. We need to understand their rights, which is the legal and moral rights. We also need to understand their knowledge of the project and the contribution to the project. So this is basically what we mean by stakeholder analysis. So after we have finished the stakeholder analysis, we'll put our stakeholders in the grid. Basically, we'll be looking at their interest, we'll be looking at their power, we'll be looking at their influence and their impact. Then we put them in a grid, and that will help us understand how we are going to be relating with all our stakeholders. So we're also going to be looking at the Alliance model, which is something that I'm going to explain later in the project. Then on this slide, we're already talking about the stakeholder register. So the stakeholder register, basically, it is one of the few different types of registers that are useful in the projects of all kinds. So whenever we start a project, we need to identify our stakeholders. We need to put them in the register by their interests. We need to look at the way we need to communicate with them. Yeah, we need to have everything. But then now, the thing as a project manager that we need to understand is stakeholder registers. They are a part of the organizational assets. So you can get a stakeholder register from the PMO. Like, for example, since I work in the PMO, we design most of the templates that are going to be used by our project management teams. And one of the templates that we design is the stakeholder register. And it really helps to have a standard for all the projects that we'll be managing as a team. So this is just an example of a stakeholder register. And whatever that is here, it's really not enough, because you can put more or you can put less, but really depending with your project. So this slide really, it just gives us a guide of what we can put on our stakeholder register. So we can state that this is an internal stakeholder, this is an external stakeholder, and then we can even put things like their influence or even their communication preferences. Let's check the next one. So now on this one, we do have the power, interest, and influence. Sometimes the power and influence sometimes is confusing. I still remember when I started to do my PMP, this was really confusing for me. Now, the power is mainly the level of authority that you get. Let's say, for example, the CEO, he really does have a lot of power on the project. So you really need to understand that this is a senior executive, this is management, they do have a lot of power on the project. Then the interest, it's mainly their level of concern, or it is actually, if it's high, then they might, okay, all right. So when you go to influence, it's mainly the ability to influence the project outcomes. So let me give another example. Let's say there is the CEO, and then sorry, did someone say something? Okay, all right. So by influence, so I was giving an example of a PA to the CEO. The PA to the CEO might not have enough power, but they will have influence on the project, because they can determine when you see the project, when you see the CEO. So even if their power is low, but their influence on the project outcome might actually be high. We can look at things like, we can also look at people like the supporters, the champions, the neutral, the detractors. They all have a very huge influence on the project. Now, as we're talking about the stakeholder mapping, when we have identified our stakeholders, we now understand their power, we now understand their interest in the project. We're going to put them in a grid. Like, for example, this stakeholder mapping that we have here. So, for example, if their power is high and their interest is low, then we need to monitor them. We need to keep them satisfied. But then if their interest is low and their power is low, then we just need to monitor them. So by doing this, we now understand that if it's the CEO who has got a high interest in the project, we're going to make sure that we know how they need to be communicated to. We understand what they need. We make sure that they do have a positive outlook on the project. So we're going to manage them closely and make sure that they are always interested in the project. So this is the 2D model. Then on the 3D model, you'll be putting three things, like, for example, the attitude, the interest, and the power. So this is basically a refinement of the 2D grid model, and it combines grid elements. It combines them into three dimension model that can be useful for the development of the communication strategies. So now, when it comes to the direction of influence, in the sense that we're all project managers, there will be our senior management. So this is the upward direction of influence. So these are the people that are going to be giving us direction and influence. They're going to be giving us some information on the project. So these are related to the parent organization, for example, of a project, the senior management of the performing organization or customer organization, for example, the sponsor and the steering committee. So then when we look now at the downward information, this is basically like the team, especially in projects. So it could be like the team, the ones that are contributing to the knowledge, the skills, and the temporary capacity. Then the outward influence, we're talking of external people, for example, like the government, the public, the users, the supporters, the regulators. They're going to bring external influence. Then we do have sideward, which is mainly the peers, for example, like our project managers. They're talking of some people that will be helping us, the people that we collaborate with, and that we share resources and information with. Then we go now to the Salience model. This is one of the powerful models that we have when it comes to stakeholders. So we'll be looking at three things: the agency, the legitimacy, and the power of the stakeholder. So the power, we have already spoken about it. It's mainly the level of authority, for example, like the CEO. When you talk of legitimacy, we're talking of their proximity to the project. How much are they allowed to be in the project, the level that they need to be in the project. Then when you talk of agency, how urgent do they need us to do how immediate are their needs in the project. Then after that, we need to go to the stakeholder perception. As I have said, that if it's CEO, we just need them to always have a positive perception on the project. However, as much as we need to give the positive perception on the project, we also need to understand that overly positive or wrongly positive performance perception can actually be damaging to the project. Like, for example, let's say you overpromise something and then you cannot deliver. You give them 1 day promise, yet you cannot deliver. So in that particular moment, they've got a positive view, but when you fail to deliver what you're supposed to deliver, it's not going to be negative, and it's going to have a very huge impact on the project. So now we also need to capture the stakeholder feedback and perceptions. And if it's one stakeholder, as you can see with a small door, that is one, and the small door with 3 people and the other one with many people. So if it's one stakeholder who is basically a key stakeholder, we need to make sure that we interview them, we understand their project requirements, their vision, their communication preferences, like the ones that we were talking about when we were mentioning the stakeholder register. So then we meet with these people, we do face-to-face, we make sure we get their information as early as possible. We understand their information, that it is very critical. Then for all stakeholders, we need to keep them informed at appropriate intervals. So it might not be always like the key stakeholders, but we still need to keep them informed. Then for large groups now, we are talking of questionnaires, surveys, etc. For the people that have got, for example, 365 or Google, some people can use forms. When you've got like 365, if they introduce something, they can also send a survey where you fill in and then you tell them that this is a good product, etc. So this is what you do when you are dealing with large groups. And then now we need to look also into the communication with the stakeholders. So basically, the stakeholder engagement plan and the communication plan, they are really interlinked artifacts. So the stakeholder engagement plan, it provides the details about the people with whom the project needs to maintain communication. And the communication management plan, it provides the details about which and how communication types, methods, and artifacts are to be used to connect with the stakeholders. So using the information in the stakeholder register and doing some further analysis, you actually create the stakeholder engagement plan and the communication plan. So you're going to take all the information that we have put in that stakeholder register, and we're going to use it to create the stakeholder engagement plan and the communication management plan. Then we also need to be asking the stakeholder directly about the communication requirements. This is a very important thing, and it needs to be done immediately at the beginning of the project. And we need to continue doing it so that we don't finish the project without meeting the stakeholder requirements. So we need to have this information. We need to discuss on the frequency of the communication, the technology that they prefer. Do they prefer emails? Do they prefer to be talked to via WhatsApp? Whatever it is, we need to have all this information before. And then the communication methods and technology, as we have been saying before, the meetings, whether it's going to be face-to-face, digital, or physical. So I'm going to run through a little bit. Now we do have these three methods: the push, the pull, and the interactive method. Now the push method, basically, it is a method. It entails telling and being direct and forthcoming with information. So this is mainly determined by the sender. For example, when you send an email, that's a push conversation. When you make a phone call, that's a push conversation. But then when it comes to pull, we are talking of things like you go to the SharePoint, the information is there, but then you go now at your own time as the receiver, and then you access the information. So this is pull communication. Then interactive communication, it is basically a method which enables both the sender and the receiver to interact in a real and near real time. For example, like the way we are doing right now, this is interactive. I'm talking to you, you are writing messages, you are listening, and the communication is actually in real time. Then the next thing now that we need to look at is the communication challenges and the considerations that we should have. So these are some of the communication challenges. I can give you just a second to look at them. Like, for example, the urgency of need for information, the availability and reliability of technology. Sometimes technology can break. Even right now, as we are talking, the internet can just go, and then it becomes an issue for our communication. The environment. I still remember there is a time I was doing a project with some people, and then they told me that they need us to connect on Zoom. Then later on, I sent a Zoom link. But then in the middle of the meeting, they said, why didn't you send Teams? And it was an issue because for me, because I was saying you told me to do Zoom. But then they said, no, when we say Zoom, we mean all the platforms from Teams, WhatsApp, Google Meet, everything. So it was just the environment that I was really working in. But then the next time, of course, I had to send them a Teams invitation. So you need to know the environment that you're working with, some of the communication issues that you can face. And so now we do have the noises in communication. Basically, the noise in communication, it can be cultural differences, it can be professional discipline, gender, etc. This can cause noises in communication. A noise is basically something that's going to affect the message that is being transmitted by the encoder to the decoder. So So this now, for you to, as a project manager, fully manage these things like the noises that we'll be having in communication, you need to have emotional intelligence, you need to understand cultural differences, and you need to be able to manage this noise so that we can be able to communicate in the project. And this usually works when you're working with projects in different regions. Okay. So in the chat, you can put some of the noise that you face in your projects for those people who are managing projects. And we can discuss some. Right. So at every point in a project, we need to make sure that all the stakeholders, they are involved. So we need to involve the stakeholders based on their needs. We need to involve them based on their expectations, on their interests, and then on their potential impact on the project. Then we need to also enable development of appropriate management strategies to engage our stakeholders. And here I've got an example of what we can use, but sake of time, we're not going to do this exercise. What basically we're supposed to do is we look at the stakeholder. If the stakeholder is currently unaware, we put a C. And then if you want them to be leading, yet they are currently unaware, in C, we put D in leading. Then everything becomes perfect when the C, which is the currently desired engagement level, and the desired engagement level are in the same place. So when we want them to be supportive and they are supportive, then it means that our SIM is actually very perfect. So it looks like this. So in this example, you can see that stakeholder number one in D, this is where we need stakeholder number one to be. We need them to be supportive, but instead they are currently leading. The same thing for stakeholder number two, we need them to be leading, but they are currently supportive. So you can use the same when you're managing your stakeholder engagement. Then I'm going to finish my stakeholder here. There's Joseph Ayombeo. Can you hear me now, Joseph? Yes. Oh, that's excellent. Thank you so much. So now I'm going to go on to share the one for risks and quality. Everyone is too quiet. I was really worried that I hope everyone is with me and understanding everything. Okay, that's excellent. Now, when it comes to risk, basically the risk management process steps, they really start from planned risk management. This is when we decide how risk activities will be conducted for the project. Then after that, we go to identifying the risks. So we find and document all potential risks in the risk register. Then after that, we're going to look at qualitative risk analysis. This is mainly a prioritization of risk based on probability and impact. Then we also look at the qualitative risk analysis, which is mainly a numerical analysis of the impact of cost and schedule where required. Then we go to planning risk responses, which is basically the development of risk strategies, such as avoiding, mitigating, transfer, exploit, etc. Then we look at the implementation of risk responses. Now, just to introduce the risk topic, risk can be both positive and negative. And when we're talking of only the pure risk is the one that we say um, it's an opportunity that's only for a loss. But then there is also business risk that we'll be looking at, which is an opportunity for both gain and loss. So a risk assessment, it actually starts early in the project and includes the review of risks that were identified in the business case and the project charter. So when we develop our project charter, we're going to identify some risks, and then we're going to do a review of the risks when we're now doing a risk assessment. Then basically risks are conditions of uncertainty that might occur. So like, for example, if I'm planning to go to town, I've got a risk that I might not arrive to town if I'm driving, if I get an accident. So these are some of the issues that we need to have in mind. So as a project manager, you sometimes get a warning that a risk is about to occur. So when a risk is about to occur, these are what we call the trigger conditions. So when a trigger condition happens, this is the time now that we now need to take action. Okay, so as I've stated before, risk can either be positive and they can be negative. But the moment that the risk happens, it now ceases to be a risk. It now becomes an issue. And at the time when the risk becomes an issue, as project manager, we definitely need to act. Okay, so these are just examples of project risk that we might face as we are doing our projects. It could be both internal, some of them will be external. So if you're working with vendors, there is a risk that they might fail to supply you on time. If you are building something, compliance issues can come. There could be a conflict of stakeholders, etc. So these are some of the project risks examples that we can have. It's not a comprehensive list, it's just an example for us to understand what we're really getting into. So what we need to look at now is the risk business context, which is, so as I have stated before, the business risks, they are both positive and negative. So when you do a business, you're either going to have a gain or you're going to have a loss. So what you need to do now as a project manager is to consider the likelihood that a risk event will occur and the potential impact of that risk on your project. So we also need to weigh the risk opportunity with the threat. Then we also need to have the approaches to risk at every the life cycle context. So in predictive approaches, risk is really maximized and minimized. Opportunities are considered but managed through a careful process. So this is really in predictive approach. So it's really not to say that in adaptive approaches, they are careless about risk, but on the contrary, the nature of the life cycle with shorter periods of feedback, like when we do our sprint, it's really a shorter period of feedback from the customer. The risks can actually occur from the customer. So basically, this is what happens. Now, I still remember a time when I lost my job like a couple of years ago. I went home and I didn't have a choice but to get into business. So at that particular time, I was really risk seeking because I was able to take any risk to make my project run. So my risk appetite, you can put it, at that particular time, it was risk seeking. But then now, how do we differentiate this thing? So risk taking, it's mainly when you are doing a project and you are ready for any risk to maximize your profits or to maximize the business the project outcomes. Then the risk neutral, you're just neutral about risk. Then risk averse, this is when you really don't want to, you're not really entertaining any risk. The risk threshold, it's mainly sorry, is there someone saying something? Okay, all right, that's okay. So it's mainly the level of acceptance. How much risk can we accept in our project? So this is really the risk threshold. So when the risk threshold passes, then action will actually need to be done. Now, in this at this point now, after we have done all that, now it's time now to create the risk management plan. As you can see here, the slide is saying factors in project characteristics. Now we're going to look at the size of the project, the complexity of the project, the importance of the project, and the development approach. So these are the things that that are going to help us when we are creating the risk management plan. And in the plan, we're going to have these things that are on the right side, which is basically the risk strategy, the methodology, the funding timing, the probability and impact matrix, and these are the stuff that we'll be having in the risk register, in the risk management plan. Sorry. Now we do have this this model. The good thing about the Stacy diagram is that it helps us decide the approach that we're going to use for the project. So if the technology is certain and the requirements are certain, we're going to use the predictive planning. But then if the technology and the requirements are somewhere in the middle, we're going to use adaptive planning. So the type of the approach that we're going to use will be determined by how certain are we when it comes to technology and requirements. So I'm going to give an example. If I want to build a house, and then I understand the materials that is needed, the labor that is needed, everything that is needed, it's going to be easy for me to go with the predictive planning. But then if I'm building like a software and I'm not sure about the requirements, I'm halfway sure about the technology that I need, even though I do have maybe some subject matter experts that are somewhere in the middle, then we're going to do adaptive planning. So this Stacy diagram, it helps us decide which approach we're going to use. So as I have stated, the x-axis, it's mainly for uncertainty of requirements, and it indicates how certain or uncertain your requirements are and how likely it is that the requirements will change in the future. So this dimension says something about the level of uncertainty of what we have to do or build in the project. So on the y-axis, which is here that is showing the requirements, it's mainly the uncertain on the y-axis, sorry, the technology. It's mainly the uncertainty of the technology. So this dimension, as you can see, it shows how uncertain your approach or technology is to finish a task. So therefore, it indicates the level of uncertainty of how you build a project. So the lack of certainty in requirements and technology, the what and the how, which is basically here, the technology, the requirements, it is addressed basically by agile methods. So if the certainty, the what and the how is lacking, we're going to address it with agile methods. Now we do have this fantastic thing, the risk breakdown structure, one of the best things in risk management. It is a tool that we use to break down our risk basically. So you can look at your risk, for example, like you can use Pastel. You're looking at the technology, the management, the commercial, for example, and then you're going to break down your risk. And then break down the technology, break down the management, break down the commercial, and break down the external risk. And this is going to help you to know the people that are going to be managing that risk, who's going to be managing the technical risk, who's going to be managing the management risk, the commercial risk, etc. So this is the information that you also have. Then the affinity diagram, it's mainly when you basically putting your risk in you are like what can I say? You're categorizing your risks, for example, according to a category. For example, like you say, these are technical risks, you group them These are management risk, you group them, commercial risk, you group them. So this is mainly the affinity diagrams where you're grouping your risk. Then the Delphi technique, as you can see here, it's mainly when you get information about risk from experts. Now, the Monte Carlo simulation, we're going to cover it a little bit later. Now, let me show you the example of a risk breakdown structure. So this is just an example of a risk breakdown structure. You can see the technical risk is broken down on risk level 2. Management risk is also broken down on risk level 2. So as we break down the risk, it's easy for us now to manage risk when it's actually broken down like this. Now, let's look at qualitative assessment. Qualitative assessment, this is the one that we said every project would really need to have a qualitative assessment. The quantitative assessment is always subjective to your project. So initially, we really assess risk to determine the high, medium, and low values of each risk using pure subjective evaluation. So if further or better understanding of a risk is required, then that's when we need to do the quantitative methods. So I'm going to give you an example of the qualitative definitions that we can use. So in this case, we have got the scale, which is a qualitative, the probability, time, cost. So these are still qualitative because these are more of approximate values. So we say if the risk is hit hard, the cost that we incur will be greater than 5 million. And then the quality of the risk. So this is mainly what we can use to classify our risk by both the probability and impact matters. So let me show you the example of the probability and impact. So in this case, you can see that it's coded by color. So if the risk is very low, it will have 1, 1, and then we can put it here. And then if the risk is very high, we put it in the very high impact and probability. Okay. So this determines where we are in terms of risk. Now I'm going to show you the risk register, just an example. This is showing us the risk description and then all the risks, everything that we can look at on the risk, the qualitative analysis of the risk. So we're looking at the risk description, the impact description, the impact level score up to the owner of the risk, the one who is going to be responsible for the risk. So if there's someone who is responsible for technical risks, for example, then that person will be responsible in that line for that technical risk. Then for some agile approach can use the risk list instead of just the one that we have looked at before. But then the things that I've put here, the things that are here, it's just a few things, but you can even put more things like the owner, the status, etc. It will look more like the risk register as well. But this can be used in Agile because the Agile, it's iterative. So we're going to be having sprints, we're going to be having daily stand-ups, and we can just identify our risk there. Now, on the quantitative risk analysis, we have got simulators, we have got the Monte Carlo simulations, and we've got the sensitive analysis. Now, on the simulations, this really, they involve calculating several possible project durations with varying sets of activity assumptions. So let's say, for example, a project simulation uses a model that translates project uncertainty into their potential impact on project active objectives. So the project model is run many times with different variables to calculate a probability distribution, in this case, like the risk factor. There is one add-in that I had in Microsoft Excel. It is called at risk. So what it does is it runs like 1,000 or more possible outcomes of the risk. And then it gives you the figures so that you understand where you are in terms of your risk. And it really helps when you're doing a quantitative analysis. Now, the sensitivity analysis, it is another technique that is employed for quantitative analysis. So this is mainly a correlation of the risk. So if we stop everything else, we need to see what happened, the sensitivity of the project if the risk happens. Just so it gives us this tornado diagram. As you can see, there is positive and then there is negative here. So if the risk happens, it starts from the top one. This is the effect of the risk when everything else is static. I think we can look at it a little bit. All right, let me go to the decision tree. Now, the decision trees, they allow decision makers to evaluate both the probability and impact for each branch of each decision under consideration. So this makes it a useful tool for value benefit analysis and risk analysis. So solving the decision tree, it indicates the decision that will provide the greatest expected value when all the uncertain implications, costs, rewards, and subsequent decisions are quantified. So then we go to the influence diagrams. These are mainly used in quality management decisions, and they are helpful when decision trees are too complex. So this is basically the influence diagrams. Then the end expected monetary value. This is the way we can just calculate them. It's mainly probability times impact plus probability times impact plus probability times impact of each risk. So if the answer is positive, then it means we'll be okay. If the answer is negative, then there is an issue. We might have to stop the project and find the way of managing that risk. Now, I want us to read this question, and I want people to tell me whether they agree to this or not. So this question is basically saying predictive projects are most often affected by the impact of cost-related risk, whereas adaptive projects are affected by the impact of time-related risks. Do you agree or disagree to this one?
Predictive projects are most often affected by the impact of cost-related cost.
I see Rachel Ogbu said they are affected. Would you want to explain why, Rachel? So I think we do have some 2 yeses to this one.
Yes, can I jump in quickly?
Yes.
Okay. Many thanks for the presentation and also to the organizer for this informative session. So I may not be right, but I say yes because when you consider predictive project, since it doesn't adapt to maybe time, context, or changes, it is playing far ahead of time. So in that case, when there's any risks, for example, if we have planned maybe to purchase maybe 5,000 worth of building materials for a building construction project. And as we go ahead with the project, knowing that we don't need those materials, and predictive projects does not adapt to changes. Somehow it may adapt, but it's not that flexible. So there may be a huge problems relating to cost, and how to mitigate that. But for adapted, it responds to changes and time, and the reason why it affects is time related because, for example, if that construction project was adaptive, we could say, okay, let's just analyze and maybe do the purchase maybe a year to come or 6 months to come. So it changes over time as the circumstances involve. So it is more time, related. That's what I think, but I don't know if I'm correct.
Yeah,
Thank you.
that's a good one. All right. So is there anyone else with what they think? Okay, so basically I would say it's actually true what he was saying, because predictive projects, they are often affected by the impact of cost related risks. You know that our cost is really fixed. But then for our adaptive projects, we're really talking of iterations and time-related risks. So the more, for example, that you don't talk to the stakeholders and stuff, we will be affected by risk. We might have to redo the work. So let's say in this example, let me just give an example for the adaptive, for the predictive. The predictive, we do have a fixed scope. So our cost is, if it goes up, then the risk is a bit high. But for adaptive, if we spend time without talking to the stakeholders, then we might have to redo the work if the expectations of the stakeholders are different from what we understood. Anyway, let me go to the next slide. So now, good practices for risk response. Sorry, it's more on. Okay. Okay, sorry, it had moved on to the next slide. So these are the good practices for a risk response. So the first thing is it has to be cost effective, appropriate, and significant for the risk. It has to be realistic, and it has to be agreed by all the relevant stakeholders. However, at the same time, it also needs to be owned by a responsible person. Let me move to the other slide. Okay. Now, when we are planning risk response, these are some of the issues and the guidelines and the terminologies that we have. So basically, a secondary risk, it is a risk that arises directly as a result of the risk response. So for example, we had a risk of an accident. If the accident happens, there is another risk of the car exploding. The exploding of the car is the secondary risk to the accident, because the accident caused a leakage in fuel. Then we have got the residual risk. This is the risk responses. This is what remains after we have done a risk response. Then now the contingency plan, this is mainly the plan that we have just in case the risk happens. Then the contingency reserve, this is the money that we set aside just in case the risk happens. So we're going to look at this in the question and answer section, because I will need a question on this, so you need to mark it. Okay, so we're not talking of escalating. So escalating on the risk response, it is mainly signaling the movement of the risk outside of the influence of the team. So these are strategies that may cause secondary risk or residual risks. So let's talk of escalation on the side of the threat before we talk of the opportunity. So on the side of the threat, for threats that clearly exceed the projects or project management threshold for management, we escalate or hand over the designated to a designated party. So if the risk can be handled, the project may be cancelled. So this is a risk that is beyond the project manager. So once we escalate it, for example, to management, and they can't handle it, at the end of the day, we might have to cancel the project. Then risk avoiding, this is when an overall risk is significantly negative, and outside the agreed upon risk threshold for the project. So we adopt and avoid strategy to take focused action to reduce the negative effects of uncertainty on the project back inside the threshold. So I'll give an example. If I'm afraid of the risk of falling in a flight, I'm just not going to fly. I'm going to go to Zimbabwe by bus. Then transferring. So if the level of overall project risk is high, but the organization is unable to address it effectively, a third party may be involved to manage the risk on behalf of the organization. So this is basically things like buying a third party for your car, maybe buying insurance for just in case maybe the workshop with things maybe it burns down. When you talk of mitigation, we're talking of changing the level of overall project risk to optimize the chances of achieving the project objectives. So, for example, we can replan the project, we can change the scope and boundaries, we can modify the project priority, we can change resource allocations, or we can adjust our delivery times. These are some of the mitigation examples. Then acceptance. This is when we do no proactive risk response strategy. So even if the overall project risk is outside the agreed threshold, we just do no action. So acceptance, it can either be active or passive. So the most common active acceptance strategy is to establish an overall contingency reserve, like the one that we were talking about before for the project. So this includes amounts of time, money, or resources to be used if the project exceeds its threshold. So passive acceptance involves no proactive action apart from periodic review of the level of overall project risk to ensure that it does not change significantly. So this is basically acceptance. Now, when we go to the opportunity, we can start also by escalating. So if the team uncovers a great opportunity for the organization, which is outside the scope of the project, okay, it can inform the relevant party who may be able to act on it. So this is likely, this will be likely one of the stakeholders, like it could be the CEO or someone who is above who can help us to maximize on the opportunity. And exploiting. So this is where the level of the overall project risk is significantly positive and outside the agreed upon risk threshold for the project. We can adopt an exploit strategy. So this involves taking focused action to capture the positive effect of uncertainty on the project. So an example for exploiting at the overall project level would include addition of high benefit elements of scope to the project to add value or benefit to stakeholders. Then when we're sharing an opportunity, it mainly involves transferring ownership of the opportunity to a third party so that it shares some of the benefit of if the opportunity occurs. Like, for example, we can say this is a good opportunity, so we can share some actions, including forming risk-sharing partnerships, teams, or special purpose companies or joint ventures. Now, when it comes to enhancing, it is a strategy. It is used to increase the probability of impact of the opportunity. So the early enhancement action is often more effective than trying to improve the benefit after the opportunity has occurred. Now, when we accept, it's mainly accepting the opportunity, acknowledging it, and then this strategy, it can actually be appropriate for low priority opportunities, and it may also be adopted where it is not possible or cost effective to address an opportunity in any other way. So acceptance can be either active or it can also be passive. So the most common active acceptance strategy is to establish a contingency reserve, just like the way we did for the threat, including amounts of time, money, and resources to take advantage of the opportunity if it occurs. Then the passive acceptance, it involves no proactive action apart from periodic review of the opportunity to ensure that it does not change significantly. So I hope this helps on risk. We actually finished risk here. So for the sake of time, I have to rush straight to quality so that we can have our question and answer section. So now on quality, I'm going to just run through the following: the meaning of quality. Basically, quality is about how well the product, service, or result meets requirements. So the focus areas of quality, we're looking at stakeholder expectations, standard regulations, and continuous improvement. Then the cost of quality, we're looking at the two main categories and the advantages of each and the disadvantages of each. We are also going to look at the quality management planning, standard and regulations, quality metrics, and continuous improvement approaches. So I'm just going to dive in. Okay, so now when we're looking at quality, we're looking at the stakeholder expectation. The moment that you meet the stakeholder expectation, or if the end user is satisfied, then you have met the quality. We're looking at things like definition of done. Then the compliance with standards. For example, let's say I'm an accounting person. If I do my financial reports for a new company and they need that as a project, I need to comply to things like GAAP or IFRS. Then continuous improvement is also quality. Now, the cost of quality here, it's divided into two. You'll see that money spent during project to avoid failure, it will actually be less costly than money spent during or after the project because of failures. So the cost of quality can be preventive costs, appraisals, internal failure costs, or external failure costs. So the preventive costs, they include things like training, document processes, equipment, and then the appraisals, they include things like testing and inspections. Then on the other side, if we fail to meet the quality, or maybe the product has gone to the customer and the customer is not happy, we might have to do some rework. We might have to scrap the whole project. We might be faced with liabilities, or even we might lose some customers. Now, we also have our stakeholder expectations and customer expectations. For you to be able to have a very good quality, you need to always understand this early. Early, you should know their expectations. So for the development of the project or deliverable, predictive projects develop a quality management plan. So the quality management plan is developed by the predictive project. So this plan identifies how the quality aspect of the project will be conducted, and often refers to the alignment with the organizational quality management plan. Okay, so it also plans for project quality, which is mainly the process and verifications and the product quality. So a quality process, a quality policy, it can easily be overlooked. So one must be in place. One quality policy must always be in place for your project. So if you're working on a project, you also need to understand that you get things like quality policy from the PMO. If you do not have, then you need to make one for the project. And the quality management plan, it is often an extension of the organization quality management plan. So it is especially when we're talking of things like testing, rollout, implementation activities. So for example, physical products, they will require different details about expected quality than service or process improvement projects. So these are some of the benefits of, these are some of the things that we have in the quality management plan. Sure, you can review them, you can look at them, and yeah. Now, compliance really, it applies to all projects and using any life cycle or in any other industry. Every industry has got a certain compliance requirement. So they're often associated with legal or regulatory standards. So these requirements must always be prioritized as mandatory or the highest. For projects, they must be compliant to internal and external standards. So these include like appropriate government regulations, organizational policies, product and project quality requirements, the project risk. So in order to manage the compliance needs of your project, you need to take these steps. So the first one, you need to classify the compliance categories, determine the potential threats to compliance, analyze the consequences of non-compliance, and determine the necessary approach and action to address compliance needs. Let's look at the quality standards and regulations just in an example. So we do have standards. You can see that a dictionary is actually a standard because it gives us the way we need to spell certain words and how we need to put it in sentences. We have got regulations which are mainly mandated by the government. The de facto standards or regulations, these are widely accepted and adopted. So some of the examples that we have of the international institutes that are devoted to quality, they include the ISO, Chartered Quality Institute, ISTM, and then to add to this, we do have IFRS, etc. And the one that is my best could be also PMBOK. It sets standards for project management. The new PMBOK 8 that has been introduced is a very good standard for project management. Now, in the chart, you can put some of the standards and regulations that are in your industry. For example, in finance, we have got IFRS, GAP. It depends with your industry that you're actually good at, that you're actually operating from. Now, the quality metrics. So these are basically identified and used during testing to ensure compliance. So these are important tools for project management professionals, and they include the metrics, tolerance levels, checklists. So when you are doing your quality checks, you need to have a checklist, some templates from project management, other artifacts required by the project management plan, iterations and retrospectives. They are really good metrics for quality. Now, as our last slide, these are some of the quality methods that we can use. So we do have the Six Sigma. You can do the Six Sigma belt where there is a certification for that as well. So it talks about defining, measuring, analyzing, improving, and controlling. Then we have got the Kaizen. Kaizen is always talking about making things better, changing for the better, and improving every time. Then we do have the PDCA. So you see that this is a recycling thing. So you plan a project, you do something on the project, you check it, you act, and then you go back again to planning, doing, checking, and acting. Then we have got the agile methods, Scrum. So in Scrum, we're always doing something. Kanban, we have got our board, crystal methods, etc. So these also, they help us for continuous quality improvements. So right now, in terms of the slides let me check, there's something on the chat. To answer, the PMBOK 8 will not be part of the exam in December 2025. So do not worry about it. Whatever that we're doing here is all right. You can sit for your exam in 2025.
Thank you, Paul. I see that they mentioned that the PMBOK 8 will only be part or starting from July 2026.
Yes, it will be starting July 2026. And now I'm going to share, for the remaining time, we are going to move into some good discussions of our sample questions that I have here. So these questions are basically going to help us to understand the terms that we have been discussing in the whole tutorial. So let me just share them here. So the first question about risk, I've put a tip in the brackets. So during a project, a team member informs you about a newly discovered risk that could delay a key milestone. So you update the risk register and immediately develop a detailed mitigation strategy. What did you do wrong? So you can put your answers in the chat and then we can discuss them. Let me put it in the sharing mode. Okay. So I'm seeing a lot of B's here, and Mabo Mosi has put a D. Would you like to explain to us why the answer is D? Anyone who has put D?
Yes.
Okay, you can go ahead.
Okay. For me, the answer is D, because when a risk occurs during the implementation of a project, the first thing to do is just to add it in the issue log to formalize, to take it as a real issue in order to assess the impact of that yes.
Okay.
The first thing to do it is to register it in the issue log.
Okay. What about anyone who has put a B, who can also give us an explanation of their answer?
So from my side, just as a project manager, you need to first, do the qualitative risk analysis before you're developing a mitigation strategy. You need to check it first before you do anything about it.
Okay.
Because your team member brings it to you.
All right. All right. Yeah, that's good. Zach Pasu. I think Zach Pasu need to say something.
Hello, Paul.
Yes, how are
Bernard
you?
is my name. Thank you so much. I think the answer should be B.
Okay.
The reason I wouldn't, I look through the answers, and then what I'm understanding is, yes, we can update the register. I believe an issue log is when the risk has crystallized. That means happened on the job, but this is a new risk, so it shouldn't go into an issue log. That's what I know. And before you develop a mitigation strategy, there should be some analysis on what the risk is, the possible impacts, before you can develop what the strategy should be. That's why B is the most appropriate answer for me here. Thank you.
Okay, that's amazing. So let me go to the answer. For me, I would say the answer is B. Why? Because risk must be analyzed before a response is developed. So let me go to the next slide. So I put here an explanation. So A is not correct because a risk should be handled immediately. We should not delay it for the meeting. C, not all risks require escalation to the sponsor. Usually in the exam, try to avoid escalating things to the sponsor, unless maybe the question really points to that. Then for the issue log, we only put in the issue log when the risk is no longer a risk. Otherwise, the risk, they belong to the risk register. So let's go to the second question. So your project manager team has identified several high priority risks. So before deciding how to respond, you want to understand how these risks could affect the project schedule and budget. What is the best next step? I'm getting a lot of C's here. Okay, is there anyone who wants to explain why C is correct? Okay, since I'm seeing a lot of C's, the correct answer here is actually C. So the reason is we use quantitative analysis when time and cost impacts matter. So A is wrong because quantitative plans are created after analysis. B, ownership comes after risk analysis and planning. And C, risk are not issues until they occur. So this D is almost like the number one thing. Let's look at question number 3. So you are managing a project that has identified 50 potential risks. You need to quickly determine which risks require immediate attention and which can be monitored with minimum effort. What is the best next step? Yeah, I think we are getting a lot of B's. Guilford, Kedula, you what's a different answer? Are you able to explain to us why we have put A? Okay, so the answer to question 3 is actually B. We need to prioritize the risk based on probability and impact. Why? So qualitative analysis, it ranks risks by probability and impact to set priorities. So it's that matrix that we've been looking at. So A is not correct because quantitative analysis is used when numerical time or cost impact is required, not for quick prioritization. So this was a quick prioritization. We cannot use quantitative analysis. Then for C, we do not create a risk responses before prioritizing. Then D, ownership comes after prioritization and not before. So we cannot assign a risk owner to each risk. Let's look at question number 4. You are managing a software development project where both the requirements and the technology are unclear and continuously evolving. Stakeholders frequently disagree on what the final product should look like. The experimentation is required to make progress. Based on the Stacy matrix, how should this project be managed? A, you can use predictive project management with detailed upfront planning. B, apply adaptive. So you can select the answer that you think is right here. Andres, what it said D. I can see B is here. Anyone to explain why B is the correct or D is the correct answer?
Yeah, from the question, the requirements and the technology are not clear and they are continuously evolving. That's a characteristic of agile.
Okay. All right. So okay, that's okay. What about anyone we have selected D?
Paul, yeah, I choose B, and the main reason why I choose that option is, if the requirements are not clear and the technology is also not clear, then you need to stop and say, well, guys, can I get clear requirements on what to do with the project?
Okay. 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 All right. So I would say
Oh, okay.
someone you can continue.
Okay, for me, I'll choose a D because I believe before you can manage any project, you need clear requirements. And when I mean clear requirement, at least to some extent, but the question, it clearly states that the technologies are unclear and continually evolving fine, but both the requirements, which I believe, which is the basis of every project, to know what one of the reasons why you're embarking on a project and what stands to benefit the end user. So if it's unclear, I'll put a stop to the project until the requirements are clear.
Okay. Okay. What about Nisa Ahmed? Pipeliwe, Pipelile, you can talk.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's B. The reason is B is that on the statement there, it is mentioned, it's what one of the key points is mentioned that an experimentation is required to make progress. Okay. So that is a key point that we need to note, because on agile and iterative approach, we can first do a first movement so that we can know exactly what the product will be, and then the stakeholders can start deciding on those results if they want to change to something else or they want to stick on that. At least it will make the project to move forward from there. So that's a key point that makes D not to be appropriate.
Okay. Okay. So I think, as we can see, this project is not really in chaos stage. So the correct answer is actually B. So the requirements in technology, they are unclear and the stakeholder agreement is low. So we use adaptive or iterative methods. So it's actually in the complex stage of the safety matrix. So D is only works when there's high uncertainty environments, require learning through iteration, not waiting for clarity. So when there's no clarity, that's when now it's in chaos stage and we need to stop the project. And then first gets the clarity. Then for A, predictive approaches, they work best when uncertainty is low. And then C, change control alone does not manage complexity. So we can go to question 5. Okay. So a project team identifies a risk that a new vendor might fail to deliver critical materials on time. The risk is a very high probability and a severe schedule impact. Canceling the vendor contract would significantly delay the project, and no alternative supplier is currently available. The project manager decides to include extra time in the schedule and additional budget to manage the potential delay. Which risk response strategy is the project manager using? I can see a lot of Steve here. Is there anyone who would like to explain why the answer is C?
Yes,
Those who have
me
chosen.
for me,
Okay.
the fact that it is said that the project manager decided to include extra time in the schedule and additional budget to manage the potential delay can be considered as a mitigation measure because he has taken in consideration the risk of that the new vendor failed, but by including these two measures.
Okay. So, okay. What about those ones who are selecting D? There is Nozipo, Dludla, and Ernest. Anyone who can explain why they think the answer is D?
I selected D, thinking that they've accepted because there are no mitigation that have been done there. He's just doing extra precautions to accept the risk that the delays will be there.
Okay. All right. Yeah, thank you for that one.
I will go for D because from the question, it's already saying the project manager decides to include extra time in the schedule and additional budgets. So by this, it shows clearly that it has been accepted because the project manager have already accepted the risk by including extra additional schedule and additional budgets. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. So the correct answer in this case is actually D. Why is it D? Because when you talk of mitigation, we are talking of planning, changing scope, adjusting resources or timeline. But when we talk of acceptance, there is two types of acceptance. There is the active acceptance and there is the passive acceptance. So in this case, we have done active acceptance, where we have accepted the risk and we have taken no creative action against the risk, but we have set aside some cost and some time reserves. Let's look at the answer. Actually, it's D, yes. So there is no practical action to remove the risk. You can see that in this, canceling the vendor contracts would significantly delay the project and no alternative supply is currently available. So you also prepare reserves instead. So this is risk acceptance. So mitigation is wrong because mitigation requires action that reduces the probability of impact. So adding contingency does not reduce the probability of impact. It prepares for the consequences. Okay. So we go to question number 6. So the project team identifies a potential opportunity to accelerate delivery by partnering with a specialized external company. The external company will receive a portion of the project's profit if the opportunity is successfully realized. Which risk response strategy is being used? I can see an A here. So there are A's and C's coming. Anyone who has got an A who can help us understand why A is the good answer. There's also a B.
Hello, good evening.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah.
I initially chose A as a transfer, but I'm
Okay.
changing my answer to share because it's an
Okay.
opportunity for a win-win situation.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you so much. What about
Good,
anyone with A?
good
Okay, you
evening.
can continue. Good evening, sir.
Yes. I chose A transfer because the fact that there was they were partnering with a specialized external company means that they were in a way transferring what do you call it, risk to the external company.
Okay, that's okay. Thank you so much, sir. Is there anyone else? I saw a B as well for exploit. There's Amaka and Sebo Mosi. I hope I pronounced it correct.
It is correct.
Okay, that's okay, sir. So why do you think B is the answer? Okay, so in this case, for this question number 6, the answer is actually C. Why? Because they are giving part of the opportunity to another party. Transfer, as stated, is mainly for threats, like the negative threats. Sharing is for the positive threats. So let's look into the answer. Yep, it's actually C. So we're giving part of the upside to another party. So if this was a threat, like a negative threat, then we'll be transferring. So transfer is used for threats, not opportunities. It shifts the negative risk to another party, usually through insurance or contracts. But in this case, it's an opportunity. Then B, we exploit it means you take direct action to make the opportunity happen without involving a third party. Then D, mitigation only applies to threats and focuses on reducing probability or impact. Okay, so we can look into question number 7. The project team decides to reduce testing activities and inspections to save money. 3 months after product launch, several customers experienced defects, resulting in warranty repairs, legal claims, and loss of resulting in warranty claims, warranty repairs, legal claims, and loss of repeated business. Which cost of quality category best describes the cost the organization is experiencing? See some. I see some D's flying in. Is there anyone who can explain why D is the correct answer?
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hello. Yes. Good
Hi.
evening. You can continue.
I'm attempting to answer, and then my answer is D, because I believe any defect or any defect, repairs, warranties, and whatever that is identified by the customer or the client, it falls under external. That's how I understand it.
Okay. All right. That's all right.
Paul, it's Andre here. I choose C, and
Yes.
the reason why I choose C for internal failure costs is the team decided to reduce the testing activities and inspections, not the customer. So it's an internal cost that the company needs to carry after 3 months when everything collapses or there's warranty repairs or claims. That's the way I
Okay.
understand it.
That's okay. Okay. That's all right. Thank you, sir. There anyone else with a different answer to C and D? Okay. So the correct answer in this case is actually D. These are mainly external failure costs. So the cost that we are highlighting here is after delivery to customers. They're outside the organization, and they're as a result of defaults found by the users. So these are external cost failures. So let's just look at them. Okay, yeah. So those are costs spent to avoid defects like training and process costs. These are the preventive costs. The appraisal costs are wrong. These are testing and inspection activities done before delivery. Then C, this is okay when defects are found before the product reaches the customer. Now, so for C, we'll be talking of things like rework. Yeah. Now let's go to question number 8. I think we can reach to question number 10 before I give back the time to my mind. So question number 8, the project team is preparing the organization's first consolidated year-end financial statement after a major ERP implementation. During the project, the team, number 1, they spent additional time creating audit trails. Number 2, they trained staff on regulatory reporting standards. Number 3, they performed multiple internal reviews before submission. So after release, regulators found no issues and no rework or penalties were required. Which of the following best describes the type of cost the project was mainly investing in? Okay, I can see a lot of C's here. Okay, so since everyone is saying C, the correct answer is actually C, because these are mainly preventive costs, mainly training. We are setting aside time to make sure that we don't have defects. So the answer here is B, the identified list, which is mainly 1, 2, 3, of what the team did is preventive and appraisal costs. Okay. So now we can go to question number 9. A project manager is working on a financial system implementation project. The team must follow consistent terminology across all project documents and also ensure compliance with international financial reporting practices. Which of the following best describes the correct classification of the references being used? So now we're talking of standards, dual defect standards, the ones that I gave a warning for. So you can put your answers here and then we can see. I see a B from Runyararo Munondo. Then Rachel Ogbu, they C. Okay. Anyone who would like to explain why? Then Andrew Swat, you've put a question mark on question 9.
I don't know the answer.
That's okay. Okay. So anyone who has put B who would like to explain, or who has put a C, who can help us understand why the answer is C. Runyararo Mnondo, you can talk. Hello. Yeah, Runyararo, you can go ahead.
Okay. Hi. Sorry, I was
How are
failing
you?
to unmute. Okay. For
That's all
me,
right.
I actually, I'm not sure about this one, but I just
Okay.
used the elimination.
Okay.
Because I think a dictionary, I think you had just mentioned it in the session that it's a standard, right? And then I
Okay.
looked at the all the other things. So I was basically using the elimination method there for me. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's why I
That's
ended up
all.
putting the, yeah.
Okay. All right. That's okay. Thank you. Okay. So anyone who has put C, someone said they feel like changing the answer to D. Rachel Ogbu. So basically, this was difficult question, really. But what made it easy was the dictionary. So as like one of the slides, I mentioned that a dictionary is an example of a standard. So a standard is mainly a document model or guideline widely accepted by authority or practice. So the answer here is actually, so standards, they guide consistency, regulations, they enforce compliance. And so when you're preparing your financial reports, IFRS is about compliance. So A is not correct because a dictionary is not a regulation, it's a standard. So it has no legal enforcement. A standard has got no legal enforcement. IFRS is not a de facto, it is formally established. Then a dictionary is not a legal regulation, and GAAP is a formal framework, not an informal guideline. So neither dictionary or GAAP is automatically a law in all countries. So this was in one of the slides, and the only tip I knew was by elimination. So sometimes in the exam, if you can eliminate some of the some of the answers. You need to do that, and then it will help you to get to the correct answer. Question 10. The project
Hello,
team
Paul.
wants. Yes.
Sorry, my hand was up.
Oh, your hand was up. Oh, sorry. You
no,
can
problem.
Continue.
I also use the elimination. I use the elimination tactic on doing this one. I think my only question is, I just want to see whether what I did was correct. Gap was not mentioned in the preamble of the question, so that's why I canceled C out. Is there a safe way to do it? I mean, it's a little tricky, but I was like, there's no mention of gap anyway. I understand that IFRS is already the financial reporting standard is, but gap wasn't mentioned, or I should classify that under all the practices under the international financial reporting. If that helps. I mean, I just wanted to find out whether my elimination tactic is spot on.
No, it was good. But GAP and IFRS is almost the same. They are both de jure standards. GAP it's mainly from the US, IFRS it's mainly from UK.
Yes.
So the tricky part here was I wanted to see if people still can identify a dictionary as a standard. Then the IFRS and GAP, I knew people would struggle. But these two, they are actually formally established. So it's actually the same thing, almost the same thing in regards to this question.
Okay, thank you.
All right, no problem. Then question 10, a project team wants to reduce defects by following a structured method that defines, that includes define, measure, analyze, improve, and control. Which method are they using?
On the way back home. Like cold, isn't it?
So for question 10, I see a lot of B's here. There is Kaizen as well, that has been selected by Ernest. Anyone else with any answer? There is B's, a lot of B's. Anyone who can explain to us why B might be correct? I'm seeing a lot of B's here.
Guys, do you know I don't have shoes?
So anyone to explain why B is the answer?
Actually, it's something I wore yesterday cut because I didn't gonna for.
Look what I found on Facebook.
Okay.
So
So
all those speakers on.
Okay. You can. So anyone to explain? Okay, Unyarara is not sure. Okay. So for question number 10, when you talk of Kaizen, we're talking of continuous improvement. Through plan, do, check, and act. So in this, for question number 10, when we talk of DMAIC, this is 100% linked to the Six Sigma. So the answer in this case is actually question C. It's actually answer C. So DMAIC is the core framework of Six Sigma. Then Kaizen, the Kai is change, Zen is good. So it improves culture. PDAC, it improves processes. Six Sigma improves performance, improves data. Agile improves delivery, improves feedback. So I think now we have finished up question number 10. So this is what we have for today. I would like to thank each and everyone who came for this tutorial, and I wish everyone a happy Christmas. So I'm going to put back the time to Mr. Maimai.
Thank you very much, Sir Paul.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
In the
Have a good
background.
night.
you.
Thank you very
so
much.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. So let's keep in touch.
Thank
Let's
you.
watch out on the various platforms for the next session.
Thank
And Mr.
you.
Paul, you can also drop your contacts in the comment section in case
Okay.
any
Thank you,
candidates
Mr.
would like to
Paul.
reach out to you.
Thank you so much.
Please
Thank you
share
very
the
much.
slides.
So
Please share the
I put
slides.
I put
Mr.
my
Paul,
contact number. Yes.
All right. So the contact
could you
number is
please
shared
share the
on the
slides?
screen.
Okay. I'll talk to Mr. Maimai, then we can see how we can share them.
No
Thank you
problem.
so much.
So
Thank
yeah,
you so
a copy
much.
of
Yeah.
the recording will be shared as well. So thanks everyone and have a nice evening.
Thank you, but
everyone.
Christmas is very far.
Thank you.
We could have another session before Christmas.
Oh yeah, definitely. Let's keep in touch, and you get the link for the upcoming sessions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so
All right,
much.
thank you. Bye.
Okay. All right.